And welcome everybody to week number 2 of Prospect Football Weekly, presented by Buffalo Wild Wings in Mount Prospect, Illinois. I'm here with Coach Dan DeBuff. What a week 1 for you. Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
Not a problem. St. Viator running back Elijah Black ran for almost 150 yards last week, but he slowed down a bit in the second half. How did your defense adjust in the second half?
I think they just stuck to the plan. They continued to rally to the ball, and I think our defense had a really strong showing last week.
Special teams played a huge part in the game, including a block kick and a few missed kicks as well. How well do you think the special teams unit played, especially with the team struggling to get points in the first half?
Yeah, I was really happy with our special teams unit, and I think that goes hats off to our special teams coordinator, Coach Beisch. He did a great job preparing those guys, and we had some guys that really stepped up and played well.
Michael Chaffis was the team's leading rusher last season. He had 3 touchdown runs against St. Viator. Luke Zardzin also had a pretty good day as well, running for more than 80 yards. How important is it to get both of them going on a weekly basis?
It's really important. Luke's going to be our guy who starts the game for us, and Michael's going to be the guy who comes in when we need a spark, and both of those guys are going to be really important for our success.
We cannot recap this game without talking about the 2 interceptions in the second half from Gary Moeller and Adam Ryerson.
Sure.
How did those 2 moments give your team a boost?
You look at different situations within a game that really swing the momentum, and I think both of those are really important moments. Interesting fact for you, both of those guys are also quarterbacks. So it was interesting that they both had interceptions.
Very, very interesting. For those who might not have been at the game, the atmosphere was absolutely something else. The student section rushing onto the field, the constant stomping. How awesome was it to win in front of the home crowd on opening night?
It was a great kickoff for the season. You could feel the energy. There was a few times where we were trying to call different things in, and it was hard to even communicate. It was so loud. That makes things a lot of fun.
Now that you've officially won your first game as Prospect head coach, how nice is it to put in the rearview mirror and move on to Hoffman Estates this week?
I guess pretty nice. Just focusing on 1 week at a time, and our group of guys has a pretty solid goal that we want to get to, so we're just looking at it 1 week at a time.
Thank you, Coach DeBuff, and stay tuned for an interview with linebacker Adam Mecke.
Welcome back to Prospect Football Weekly. I'm here with starting linebacker Adam Mecke. Adam, thanks for being on the show.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
After a big win like that against St. Viator, what did it mean for this defensive crew to pull out that win?
It was huge for the defense. We were seen as really small, and Viator, they had 250 O-linemen. We don't have anybody over 200 pounds, and I think it was just a huge game for our defense. We rallied to the ball. We got 2 interceptions, which was really big, and it was just a good game all around. Adam Ryerson had a really good game, and Gary Moeller had a really good game.
Speaking to that big St. Viator offensive line, what did you guys have to do as a defensive unit to stop and to be able to get past that offensive line?
We definitely had to play much faster. They were really slow offensive linemen, and we had to use speed to our advantage.
Absolutely. What does it mean for Prospect as a whole after winning a game like that?
I think it's huge. Going off a 3-6 season and not really having much going for us. With new coach Dan DeBuff, it was a huge up for our whole school and everyone.
Without a doubt. Now, what is the mentality like in practice now, coming off a big win and hoping that transitions into another game against Hoffman?
The mentality is don't really focus much on the Viator game. Now it's onto Hoffman, and just keep playing fast and keep doing our thing.
What will you need to do to keep up that success against Hoffman?
Probably rallying to the ball. They have a really good running back, and the defense is all they have to do is rally the ball. On the offense, they just have to play fast.
Absolutely.
That's just their thing.
That's all we have for linebacker Adam Mecke. Stay tuned with an interview with Special Teams Coordinator, Mr. Beischer. Welcome back to Prospect Football Weekly. I'm here with Special Teams Coordinator, Mr. Tim Beischer. Coach Beischer, thanks for being on the show.
I'm really excited to be here.
You are now the Special Teams Coordinator this season, and Special Teams made a pretty large impact in determining the results of the game against St. Viator. How important was that block kick as well as forcing a pair of misses for St. Viator?
Yeah, the block kick was great. Right before halftime, it gave us a boost. Obviously denies them points, and it just gives us a little boost going into halftime. Also, just instills belief in the kids that if they can go ahead and execute the plan, we can make big plays, and it's just going to lead to more of those.
Without a doubt. Even though the unit had a pretty good night, what can be improved against another playoff team this week in Hoffman Estates?
Yeah, we have to improve big time on our game awareness. Just make sure everybody's where they're supposed to be when they're supposed to be there. Hoffman has another more talented returners. that we're going to have to be able to bottle up. So it's just going to be about, I think, our game awareness and continuing to really try to fly around and bottle up their excellent return game.
St. Viator had a huge defensive line. How well do you think the players were at keeping them away from starting quarterback Jimmy Martin?
Yeah, I thought we did a nice job, but we had a lot of youth on the field, a lot of inexperience on the field up front. They were enormous. It's some big boys. They had 2 excellent linebackers. And so, yeah, I think our offensive line, they really fought. We had a couple of guys, their first varsity experience of any kind, a couple of guys, their first varsity start. Only 2 guys on the line had any meaningful varsity time, and really an offensive line, there's no substitute for starts. But so yeah, I thought they really fought hard. A couple times we were just outgunned. We just kept playing, and at the end of the game, we were in control.
Talking about that inexperienced offensive line, what does it mean to have the depth of those players who have already started plus the players who are returning?
Yeah, obviously it's crucial. You usually need about 7 offensive linemen to feel comfortable going into a game. And we had to have some guys step up. Lost Sebastian Swistak, one of our returners, over the summer. And so guys have had to step up and fill that role, some young, some in the upper classes. But yeah, I think it's just it's about a unit. It's a unique position that you need 5 people working together, and they did a nice job.
How well do you think the offensive line has transitioned into the new offense of Coach DeBuff?
I think they're doing a good job. When you're trained in using your feet, footwork, striking, that translates to a lot of different offenses. The biggest transition has been the pace that we want to play with. That's not a big boys game, but they're doing a good job, and it really paid dividends for us in the fourth quarter.
Absolutely. That's all we have for Coach Beiser. Stay tuned for a preview of this week's game against Hoffman Estates.
And welcome back, everybody, to Prospect Football Weekly, sponsored by Buffalo Wild Wings in Mount Prospect. Coach DeBuff joins me once again to preview the game against Hoffman Estates, first road game of the season as well.
Yeah.
Hoffman Estates' offense struggled against Elk Grove last week. What does the defense need to do to prevent them from scoring a lot of points, just like Elk Grove did last week?
I think containing their athletes. They do have a pretty good back and some pretty good skill position players. So as long as we rally to the ball and tackle well, we should be in good shape.
Hoffman Estates is a pretty good defense coming into this year. What is the offensive focus into this week after a win against St. Viator last week?
Just building off how we finished the game last week. I think we saw some flashes of really good things, and we want to continue to get a little bit more consistent.
Hoffman Estates' run defense is very, very talented, including having a goal line stop on 4th and 1 in overtime last week. Mm-hmm. How essential is it to get off to a good start on the ground with those big guys up front?
Yeah, I think it's important, and I think same goes for last week. I think it's important that we grind those guys down a little bit. They're going to be pretty big up front, but we're hoping that our pace can slow those guys down.
Absolutely. There was 24 combined penalties in the Elk Grove Hoffman Estates game last week. How important is it for both sides of the ball to stay out of the penalty trouble after having some key penalties last week?
Yeah, it's really important. I think for the most part we played fairly clean penalty-wise for a Week 1 game. If we can cut those in half, we should be in pretty good shape.
Hoffman Estates made the Class 6A semifinals last season, and you traveled to their field to play them on Friday. What kind of atmosphere are you expecting, and how tough will it be for the players and the coaches to communicate well in an environment like Hoffman Estates?
Well, with our great student section, the U, we're looking for every game being a home game. So we're hoping to travel well and have a lot of fan support there.
Alrighty, thank you, Coach DeBuff, and that's it for Week 2 of Prospect Football Weekly, sponsored by Buffalo Wild Wings in Mount Prospect. We will see you next week for a preview of the game against Niles North, another road game. We'll see you next week.